Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, so we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Majjhima Lila, and chapter 12 is entitled The Cleansing of the Gundicha Temple. So it's chapter 12. There's hundreds of verses in these chapters. So we'll start at text 80. Text 80, chapter 12, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And before we start reading the book itself, we'll recite another invocation mantra. And if you don't know it, you can just listen. So this is just to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering here. Okay. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatu Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Okay, so it's January 23rd, 2021, evening program. We're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Majjhima Lila, chapter 12, entitled The Cleansing of the Gudicha Temple. And we're starting at text 80, and we'll read several verses. Okay. Shri Haste Dila Sabare Eka Marjani Sabagana Lana Prabhu Chalila Apani. He means Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He then gave each devotee a broom with his own hand, and taking all of them personally with him, the Lord went to Gudicha. Gundicha Mandire Gela Karite Marjana Pratame Marjani Lana Karila Shodhana. In this way, the Lord and his associates went to cleanse the Gudicha temple. At first, they cleansed the temple with the brooms. Pitara Mandira Upara Sakala Majila Simhasana Maji Punashtapana Kavila. The Lord cleansed everything inside the temple very nicely, including the ceiling. He then took up the sitting place, Singhasan, cleansed it, and again put it in its original place. Chotabada Mandira Koila Marjana Shodhana Pache Taiche Shodhila Shri Jaga Mohana. Thus the Lord and his companions cleansed and swept all the temple's buildings, big and small, and finally cleansed the area between the temple and the Kirtan hall. Chari dike shata bhakta samarjani kare apani shodhena prabhu shikana sabare. Indeed, hundreds of devotees were engaged in cleansing all around the temple. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally carrying out the operation just to instruct others. Premo lase shodhena layena Krishna nam bhakta gana Krishna kahe kare nija kama. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed the temple in great jubilation, chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna all the time. Similarly, all the devotees were also chanting and at the same time performing their respective duties. Duli dushara tanu dekite shobhana kahan ashrudale kare samarjana. The entire beautiful body of the Lord was covered with dust and dirt. In this way, it became transcendently beautiful. At times, when cleansing the temple, the Lord shed tears, and in some places, he even cleansed with those tears. Boga mandira shodhanakari shodhila prangana sakala avasakrame karila shodhana. After this, the place where the deity's food was kept, Boga mandira, was cleansed. Then the yard was cleansed, and then all the residential quarters, one after the other. Trina Duli Jinkura Sava Ekatra Kariya Bahirase Lana Pelaya Bahira Kariya. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu collected all the straw, dust, and grains of sand in one place, he gathered it all in his cloth and threw it outside. E Mata Bhakta Gana Karini Javase Trina Duli Bahire Pelaya Paramaharishe. Following the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees in great jubilation began to gather straws and dust with their own cloths and throw them outside the temple. Prabhu kahe ke kata kariyacha samarjan Trina duli dekile janiba parishrama. The Lord then told the devotees, I can tell how much you have labored and how well you have cleansed the temple simply by seeing all the straw and dust you have collected outside. Even though all the devotees collected dirt in one pile, the dirt collected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was much greater. After the inside of the temple was cleansed, the Lord again allotted areas for the devotees to cleanse. The Lord then ordered everyone to cleanse the inside of the temple very perfectly by taking finer dust, straws, and grains of sand and throwing them outside. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnavas cleansed the temple for the second time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy to see the cleansing work. While the temple was being swept, about 100 men stood ready with filled water pots, and they simply awaited the Lord's order to throw the water from them. Jala ana bali yabe Mahaprabhu kaila tabe shata gata ani Prabhu age gila. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called for water, all the men immediately brought the 100 water pots, which were completely filled, and delivered them before the Lord. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first washed the main temple and then thoroughly washed the ceiling, the walls, the floor, the sitting place, Singhasan, and everything else within the room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself and his devotees began to throw water onto the ceiling. When this water fell, it washed the walls and floor. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to wash the sitting place of Lord Jagannath with his own hands, and all the devotees began to bring water to the Lord. All the devotees within the temple began to wash. Each one had a broom in his hand, and in this way they cleansed the temple of the Lord. Someone brought water to pour into the hands of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and someone poured water on his lotus feet. The water that fell from the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was drunk by someone who hid himself. Someone else begged for that water, and another person was giving that water in charity. After the room was washed, the water let out through an outlet, and it then flowed and filled the yard outside. The Lord mopped the rooms with his own clothes, and he polished the throne with them also. In this way, all the rooms were cleansed with 100 water pots. After the rooms had been cleansed, the minds of the devotees were as clean as the rooms. When the temple was cleansed, it was purified, cool, and pleasing, just as if the Lord's own pure mind had appeared. Since hundreds of men were engaged in bringing water from the lake, there was no place to stand on the banks. Consequently, someone began to draw water from a well. Hundreds of devotees brought water in the pots, and hundreds took the empty pots away to fill them up again. Nityananda Advaita Svaru Bharati Puri Inhavinu Arasaba Ane Jalabari. With the exception of Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Charya, Swarup Damodar, Brahmananda Bharati, and Paramananda Puri, everyone was engaged in filling the water pots and bringing them there. Many of the water pots were broken when people collided with one another, and hundreds of men had to bring new water pots to fill. Jale bare gara doya kare hari dvani, Krishna hari dvani bina aranadhi suni. Some people were filling the pots and others were washing the rooms, but everyone was engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and Hari. Krishna Krishna Kai Kare Gatera Prarthana, Krishna Krishna Kai Kare Gata Samarpana. One person begged for a water pot by chanting the holy names Krishna Krishna, and another delivered a pot while chanting Krishna Krishna. Ye Kai Se Kai Krishna Name Krishna Nama Hatila Sanketa Sabakame. Whenever anyone had to speak, he did so by uttering the holy name of Krishna. Consequently, the holy name of Krishna became an indication for everyone who wanted something. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was vibrating the holy name of Krishna in ecstatic love, he himself was performing the work of hundreds of men. It appeared as though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were cleansing and washing with 100 hands. He approached every devotee just to teach him how to work. Balakarma dekitare kare prasamshana mane nami lile kare pavitra bhartsana. When he saw someone doing nicely, the Lord praised him. But if he saw that someone was not working to his satisfaction, he immediately chastised that person, not bearing him any grudge. The Lord would say, "You have done well. Please teach this to others so that they may act in the same way." As soon as they heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say this, everyone became ashamed. Thus the devotees began to work with great attention. They washed the Jagamohan area, and then the place where food was kept. All other places were also washed. In this way, the meeting place was washed, the entire yard, the raised sitting places, the kitchen, and every other room. Mandirera Chaturdik Prakshalanam Koila Saba Antapura Bala Mate Doya Ila. Thus all places around the temple were thoroughly washed within and without. Hemnakale Gaudiya Eka Subhuti Sarana Prabhura Charana Yuge Dilakata Jala. After everything was thoroughly washed, a Vaishnava from Bengal who was very intelligent and simple, came and poured water on the lotus feet of the Lord. The Gaudiya Vaishnava then took that water and drank it himself. Seeing that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt a little unhappy and was also outwardly angry. Although the Lord was certainly satisfied with him, he became angry externally in order to establish the etiquette of religious principles. The Lord then called for Sarup Damodar and told him, "Just see the behavior of your Bengali Vaishnava. This person from Bengal has washed my feet within the temple of the personality of Godhead. Not only that, but he has drunk the water himself. I now do not know what my destination is because of this offense. Indeed, your Bengali Vaishnava has greatly implicated me." Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Laura, would you like to read the purport?
Sure. It is significant that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Swarupa Damodara Goswami, that the Bengali Vaishnava, how do you say that word?
Vaishnav, correct.
Vaishnav was your Gaudiya Vaishnava.
Your Gaudiya Vaishnava.
Vaishnava, who are followers of the Chaitanya cult, are subordinate to Swarupa Damodara Goswami. The parampara system is very strictly observed by
Gaudiya Vaishnava.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Personal security was Swarupa Damodara Goswami. The next group of devotees was the 6 Goswamis, then Kavirajas Goswami. It is necessary to observe the Parampa system of the Chaitanya cults. There are many offenses one can commit while serving the Lord, and these are described in the Bhakti
Rasamrita Sindhu, Hari Bhakti Vilas, and other books.
According to the rules and regulations, no one should accept obediences in the temple of the Lord before the deity, nor is it proper for a devotee to offer obeisances and touch the feet of the spiritual master before the deity. This is considered an offense. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it was not actually offensive to wash his lotus feet in the temple. However, because he was playing the part of an acharya, is that it?
Correct, acharya. Acharya really means one who teaches by example.
The Lord considered himself an ordinary human being. He also wanted to give instructions to ordinary human beings. The point is that even though one plays the part of a spiritual master, he should not accept obeisances or permit a disciple to wash his feet before the deity. This is a matter of etiquette.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. So we'll read a bit more and we'll see. So this is a real historical event, this cleansing of the Gudicha temple. And also it's a powerful metaphor for cleansing our hearts and minds. And we're going to enter into that in the upcoming pages. Okay, cleansing our hearts and minds. Tabe Svarup Goswami Dhara Gada Gadehata Dia Dekamare Purira Bahira Rakilena Lana. At this point, Swarup Damodar Goswami caught the Gaudiya Vaishnava by the neck and, giving him a little push, ejected him from the Gudicha Puri temple and made him stay outside. Puna Asi Prabhupaya Karila Vinaya Agya Aparadha Kshama Karite Yuyaya. After Swarup Damodar Goswami returned within the temple, he requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to excuse that innocent person. After this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very satisfied. He then asked all of the devotees to sit down in 2 lines on both sides. The Lord then personally sat down in the middle and picked up all kinds of straw, grains of sand, and dirty things. Ekata kudaya saba ekatra kariba Yara Alpa Taratani, Pita Pana Laiba. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was picking up the straws and grains of sand, he said, I shall gather everyone's collection, and I shall ask whoever has collected less than all the others to pay a fine of sweet cakes and sweet rice. In this way, all the quarters of the Gudicha temple were completely cleansed and cleared. All quarters were cool and spotless, like one's cleansed and pacified mind. Pranalika Chadi Adi Panivaha Ila Nutana Nadiyena Samudre Milila. When the water from the different rooms was finally let out through the halls, it appeared as if new rivers were rushing out to meet the waters of the ocean. E mata puradvara age patayata sakala suthila tahi ke varnibe kata. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were also cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In commenting on the cleansing of the Gudicha temple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the world leader, was personally giving instructions on how one should receive Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within one's cleansed and pacified heart. If one wants to see Krishna seated in his heart, he must first cleanse the heart as prescribed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshastika, Chaito Darpana Marjanam. In this age, everyone's heart is especially unclean, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidyantastoya Bhadrani. To wash away all dirty things accumulated within the heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised everyone to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. The first result will be that the heart is cleansed, Chaito Darpana Marjanam. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 17, confirms this statement. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Vidyantastoya Bhajani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So by chanting Hare Krishna, hearing names of Krishna chanted, that Krishna personally cleanse our heart by chanting sincerely. So it's this most powerful process. If a devotee at all wants to cleanse his heart, he must chant and hear the glories of the Lord, Sri Krishna, Srinvatam Sakata Krishna. This is a simple process. Krishna himself will help cleanse the heart because he is already seated there. Krishna wants to continue living within the heart, and the Lord wants to give directions. But one has to keep his heart as clean as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept the Gudicha temple. The devotee therefore has to cleanse his heart just as the Lord cleansed the Gudicha temple. In this way, one can be pacified and enriched in devotional service. If the heart is filled with straws, grains of sand, weeds, or dust, in other words, anya bilashita purna, one cannot enthrone the Supreme Personality of Godhead there. The heart must be cleansed of all material motives brought about through fruitive work, speculative knowledge, the mystic yoga system, and so many other forms of so-called meditation. The heart must be cleansed without ulterior motive. As Srila Rupa Goswami says, Anya Bila Shita Shunyam Gyan Karma Dhyanavritam. In other words, there should not be any external motive. One should not attempt material upliftment, understanding the Supreme by speculative knowledge, fruitive activity, severe austerity and penance, and so on. All these activities are against the natural growth of spontaneous love of Godhead. As soon as these are present within the heart should be understood to be unclean and therefore unfit to serve as Krishna's sitting place. We cannot perceive the Lord's presence in our hearts unless our hearts are cleansed. A material desire is explained as a desire to enjoy the material world to its fullest extent. In modern language, this is called economic development. An inordinate desire for economic development is considered to be like straws and grains of sand within the heart. If one is overly engaged in material activity, the heart will always remain disturbed. As stated by Narottam Das Thakur, Samsara Vishanale Divi Nishi Hiajwale Judaite Na Koinu Upaya. In other words, endeavor for material opulence is against the principle of devotional service. Material enjoyment includes activities such as great sacrifices for auspicious activity, charity, austerity, elevation to the higher planetary system, and even living happily within the material world. Modernized material benefits are like the dust of material contamination. When this dust is agitated by the whirlwind of fruitive activity, it overcomes the heart. Thus, the mirror of the heart is covered with dust. There are many desires to perform auspicious and inauspicious activities, but people do not know how life after life they are keeping their hearts unclean. One who cannot give up the desire for fruitive activity is understood to be covered by the dust of material contamination. Karmis generally think that the interaction of fruitive activities can be counteracted by another karma or fruitive activity. This is certainly a mistaken conception. If one is deluded by such a conception, he is cheated by his own activity. Such activities have been compared to an elephant's bathing. An elephant may bathe very thoroughly, but as soon as it comes out of the river, it immediately takes some sand from the land and throws it all over its body. If one suffers due to his past fruitive activities, he cannot counteract his suffering by performing auspicious activities. The sufferings of human society cannot be counteracted by material plans. The only way suffering can be mitigated is by Krishna consciousness. When one takes to Krishna consciousness and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, beginning with chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, the cleansing of the heart begins. When the heart is actually cleansed, one can clearly see the Lord sitting there without any disturbance. In Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.68, the Lord confirms that he sits within the heart of the pure devotee. Sarvo Hridayam Mayam Sarunam Hridayam Tvaham. So in the purport there, Prabhupada's emphasizing, this process, the process of, okay, well, I do whatever degraded things I do, but then I'll go to confession on Sunday, and then I'll go and do the same things and come back next Sunday. I mean, the idea of acknowledging God an hour a week, that's nice. But what Lord Chaitanya, what Srila Prabhupada, what Krishna are giving is a process not to counteract the effects of decadent activity, but to cleanse the heart of the very desire to engage in anything other than joyful devotional service to God, to really to pull the weed at the root, not just clip it and then it grows back in a few more days. That's what we're getting at here. I'll continue with the purport. Impersonal speculation, monism, merging into the existence of the Supreme, speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and meditation are all compared to grains of sand. They simply cause irritation to the heart. No one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such activities, nor do we give the Lord a chance to sit in our hearts peacefully. Rather, the Lord is simply disturbed by them. Sometimes yogis and jnanis in the beginning take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as a way to begin their various practices. But when they falsely think that they have attained release from the bondage of material existence, they give up chanting. They do not consider that the ultimate goal is the form of the Lord or the name of the Lord. Such unfortunate creatures are never favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for they do not know that devotional service, they do not know what devotional service is. Lord Krishna describes them in the Bhagavad Gita this way: Tanaham dveshata kuran samsareshu naradaman kshipam yadashram ashubhan asarishveva yonishu. Quote, that's from Bhagavad Gita 16.19. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. By his practical example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown us that all the grains of sand must be picked up thoroughly and thrown outside. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cleansed the outside of the temple, fearing that the grains of sand would again come within. In this connection, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that even though one may become free from the desire for fruitive activity, sometimes the subtle desire for fruitive activity again comes into being within the heart. One often thinks of conducting business to improve devotional activity, but the contamination is so strong that it may later develop into misunderstanding, described as kutinati, fault-finding, and pratishtasha, the desire for name and fame and for high position, jiva himsa, envy of other living entities, nishidachara, accepting things forbidden in the Shastra, kama, desire for material gain, and puja, hankering for popularity. The word kutinati means duplicity. As an example of pratishtasha, one may attempt to imitate Srila Haridas Thakur by living in a solitary place. One's real desire may be for name and fame. In other words, one thinks that fools will accept one to be as good as Haridas Thakur just because one lives in a solitary place. These are all material desires. A neophyte devotee is certain to be attacked by other material desires as well, namely desires for women and money. In this way, the heart is again filled with dirty things and becomes harder and harder, like that of a materialist. Gradually, one desires to become a reputed devotee or an avatar, incarnation. The word jiva himsa, envy of other living entities, actually means stopping the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Preaching work is described as parupakara, welfare activities for others. Those who are ignorant of the benefits of devotional service must be educated by preaching. If one stops preaching and simply sits down in a solitary place, he is engaging in material activity. If one desires to make a compromise with the Mayavadis, he is also engaged in material activity. A devotee should never make compromises with non-devotees. By acting as a professional guru, mystic yogi, or miracle man, one may cheat and bluff the general public and gain fame as a wonderful mystic, but all this is considered to be dust, straw, and grains of sand within the heart. In addition, one should follow the regulative principles and not desire illicit sex, gambling, intoxicants, or meat. To give us practical instructions, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cleansed the temple twice. His second cleansing was more thorough. The idea was to throw away all the stumbling blocks on the path of devotional service. He cleansed the temple with firm conviction, as is evident from his using his own personal garments for cleaning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to see personally that the temple was thoroughly cleansed to the standard of clean marble. Clean marble gives a cooling effect. Devotional service means attaining peace from all disturbances caused by material contamination. In other words, it is the process by which the mind is cooled. The mind can be peaceful and thoroughly cleansed when one no longer desires anything but devotional service. So I'll read that part again, because it's talking about clean marble, just like to be in the presence of clean marble. It's soothing for the mind. Like this, yeah. not exactly marble, it's terrazzo,
Oh,
but I like it.
but it's cool.
It's cooling. It's the same principle. Same principle, exactly. Clean marble gives a cooling effect. Devotional service means attaining peace from all disturbances caused by material contamination. In other words, it is the process by which the mind is cooled. The mind can be peaceful and thoroughly cleansed when one no longer desires anything but devotional service. Even though all dirty things may be cleansed away, sometimes subtle desires remain in the mind for impersonalism, monism, success, and the four principles of religious activity, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. All these are like spots on clean cloth. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also wanted to cleanse all these away. By his practical activity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informed us how to cleanse our hearts. Once the heart is cleansed, we should invite Lord Sri Krishna to sit down, and we should observe the festival by distributing prasadam and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to teach every devotee by his personal behavior. Everyone who spreads the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepts a similar responsibility. The Lord was personally chastising and praising individuals in the course of the cleaning, and those who are engaged as acharyas must learn from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how to train devotees by personal example. The Lord was very pleased with those who could cleanse the temple by taking out undesirable things accumulated within. This is called a nartanivriti, cleansing the heart of all unwanted things. Thus, the cleansing of the Gundicha Mandira was conducted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to let us know how the heart should be cleansed and soothed to receive Lord Sri Krishna and enable him to sit within the heart without disturbance. Let's see a chat here, so I'll read the chat. Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Jim. So you have the book there?
That was a good question. I don't have the book now. I guess you can't really put it up on the screen, can you?
I can.
I don't know how to do that.
I do, but I didn't quite prepare it beforehand.
I was just putting that out there. Just to offer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So for either of you, at this point, is there anything you want to share? Any questions you want to ask at this time?
It's nice to hear about Chaitanya. I've heard, I hear about him all the time, and I've never really, and I've heard of the book, the Chaitanya Amrita. So it's nice to kind of dig into it and hear about some of the past times. But I've heard about him and his golden radiance and his relationship with Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and so it's nice to kind of be filled in and hear about him.
To directly hear from
Chaitanya.
Yeah. Yes. Right, because like in the mornings we usually read from Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes Bhagavad Gita. Last Saturday night we studied some Bhagavad Gita about the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. So this is a whole nother very important aspect of Krishna consciousness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So you're appreciating. We're reading it, and there's hundreds and hundreds of wonderful pastimes, all integrated with very sublime philosophy. And so we're choosing one particularly wonderful pastime. Laura?
So when you're reading this part about material enjoyment, I feel like discouraged and would like to also understand, like, I don't think I'm ever going to give up like all my material enjoyments, and I'm wondering, like, how can I approach that
Like how should I relate to this?
Yeah, because it's like, well, I went to the beach the other day and I was like biking around and it was beautiful and it felt very peaceful.
Happy,
And I like to go swimming in the springs and walk in nature. Like, am I not allowed to do those things? Is that, is that material enjoyment? I mean, sometimes I do those things and I'm not like enjoying them. I've done those things when I'm not having a good day and it's like I'm taking care of myself and I don't know.
You're wondering how to relate to like, some of these phrases and statements.
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
just reading it straight you feel some discouragement, like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with this?
Well, it's like, yeah, and basically, well, you're doing it wrong, so why even try? 'Cause I'm not, like, am I covering up my heart by just doing those things? That's all.
Thanks for sharing. So, actually, I'll just share like a big, many of the pastimes described here in this book, they take place on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place at a beach that my first time in India was 1988, and it's the beach at Bhubaneswar and Jagannath Puri. And so yeah, this bhakti yoga. It's not a process of giving up going to the beach. It's not a process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process of transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that, okay, like for the spirit soul, it's natural to enjoy. Not like, well, let's get spiritual and not have fun anymore. No, it's about like this. Let's really awaken to the real fun. And so, for example, Krishna says,
and I was chanting a lot. Even during my bike ride, I was actually chanting.
Yeah. So
not the whole time.
Right. So you were naturally dovetailing the day at the beach with Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So that's it. So that's perfection. That's perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were chanting Hare Krishna, and you were enjoying the day at the beach, enjoying the bike ride, and integrating it with remembering God. So that's perfection. Krishna says, Yukta Hare Viharasya, Yukta Chestasya Karmasya, Sapna Yukta Sapna Vabodasya, Yoga Bhavati Dukkha. He says in this process, it's very important to be balanced in eating, sleeping, recreation, work. So it's not like about extreme imbalance, being balanced. And he specifically says recreation. And so the idea is that in a joyful, playful way to integrate our recreation with Krishna consciousness. And the best way to do that is by chanting. So it's not like don't go to the beach, but go to the beach, chant Hare Krishna. Even Krishna describes that, like, well, like he is the ocean. The ocean is a primary energy. So we can see the vastness of the ocean, the sky, help us to remember it. Okay, wow, nature is beautiful. Whose nature is it? Just like you have your nature, I have my nature, Jim has his nature. So wherever there's nature, there's a person behind the nature. So it can move us to awe. So we see a painting, a beautiful painting.
Yeah, I think of that a lot.
Yeah.
And I went walking in town, actually there's some other stores that are closed. I was just staring at a painting for like 5 minutes and
We look at a painting and we say, wow, who's this painter? So we look at like a flower, sky, ocean, trees, birds with their feathers. Wow, who's the artist? Mm-hmm. And so you don't need to change anything. You go to them.
Just be careful who I invite with me. If I go with people. It's easy because I'm alone.
No, I think that's a wise comment, because our association is important, and so Yeah. So
I didn't hear that. What was the wise comment?
I said, I don't remember exactly word for word, but I said it's gonna be careful who I invite. And
Oh, yes.
and that time I went alone, so.
it was you and Krishna. No, it's a wise comment because so recreation is part of the process. But then whether it's recreation or anything we do, we're influenced by association. And so not that we want to put up walls, but just like in any endeavor. Let's say if someone's goal is I want to become a doctor. Okay, so he's going to probably hang out with like other medical students. He's going to hang out at the medical library. He's probably not going to hang out too much with the construction workers. It just depends. If someone wants to be like, I want to become a really accomplished musician. Okay, he's going to hang out with other guitar players and drummers like that. He's probably not going to hang out too much with the accountants. Okay. So it's going to be like if we really want to become self-realized, realize we're not the body, we're spirit. So I want to become, I want to realize myself as a devotee of Krishna. It's going to be helpful to hang out, to associate closely with others who are devotees of Krishna. And for those who have no interest in that, it's not like judgment. It's just like probably this isn't the association that's going to help me towards my goal. Yeah. So like if there's, we've had not so much, in pandemic days, but we've over the decades, we often go to St. Augustine Beach and have kirtan. And St. Augustine Beach or other beaches, Clearwater, and we'd be like up at 4 a.m. chanting japa, group of us, sunrise, kirtan, enjoying the beach.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely.
Yeah.
I think you did some of that in North Carolina. Maybe it wasn't the beach, but you went with Marie and Leah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
2 years ago. Any other comments or questions at this time? Okay, yeah. So this is yes, because see this. I always liked this about Krishna consciousness, and I was like eating prasad and reading Prabhupada's books for years before I started chanting. So you shouldn't follow me in that regard. But my point is, before I in any way gave any commitment to the process, but I was reading, and I always liked it. That this isn't a religion. Like, oh, should I join the be it this, what group? It's like it's a practical process for cleansing the heart, and it's like someone can call themselves whatever, Christian, Jew, Hare Krishna, atheist. Practice this process, practical process for transforming the heart, and I've always been interested in that, and that's kind of why I was inspired to develop the Sofitel programs, a practical process for transformation of heart. Okay, so we can read a bit more and then bring our program to a close. So we're on text 136 of chapter 12, Madhya Lila, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Narsingha Mandira Bitara Bahira Shodhila Saneka Vishramakari Nritya Arambila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cleansed the Nrsimha temple inside and outside. Finally, he rested a few minutes and then began dancing. So, as you can see, as far as enjoyment, like really just from just regular material fun, this is like the best, it's like there's so much dancing and singing and the most wonderful food. Yeah. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, the Nrsimha temple is a nice temple just outside the Gudicha temple. In this temple, there is a great festival on the day of Nrsimha Chaturdasi. There is also a Nrsimha temple at Navadvip, where the same festival is observed as described by Murari Gupta in his book Chaitanya Charita. I'll just mention this cleansing of the Gudicha temple. In 1988, I was there. I was at that place in Jagannath Puri. been to India 9 times. And
The temple?
yeah, I didn't go in
Oh,
because it wasn't allowed. Actually, the priests there, they got some discrimination, and I don't have the right color skin to go in.
oh,
That's unfortunate.
oh, yeah, because you told that story
I
recently?
told that story. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no, it's that temple.
Yeah, it's that simple. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's not aligned with the teachings of Lord Chaitanya or Prabhupada, but
Mhm.
yeah, that's the spirit of the age, discrimination, things like that.
That's Mayapur?
This was Jagannath Puri. Well, now Lord Chaitanya, he appeared, he took birth in Mayapur, yes. And then he spent the first 24 years of his life in Mayapur. And then the second 24 years, he passed away at 48, he disappeared. The second 24 years, primarily he was at Jagannath Puri. And that's what we're reading here. These are like,
Gotcha.
maybe he's about 26 years old here. It's his first years in Jagannath Puri. So the first 24 years was in Mayapur. Now this is the beginning of the second 24 years. Chari dike bhakta gana karena kirtana madhye nritya karena prabhu mata singha sama. All around, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees performed congregational chanting. The Lord, just like a maddened lion, danced in the middle. As usual, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, there were perspiration, trembling, fading, tears, jubilation, and roaring. Indeed, the tears from his eyes washed his body and those before him. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed the bodies of all the devotees with the tears from his eyes. The tears poured like the rain in the month of Shravana. The sky was filled with the great and loud chanting of Sankirtan, and the earth shook from the jumping and dancing of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always liked the loud chanting of Swarup Damodar. Therefore, when Swarup Damodar sang, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high in jubilation. The Lord thus chanted and danced for some time. Finally, understanding the circumstances, he stopped. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then ordered Sri Gopal, the son of Advaita Acharya, to dance. While dancing in ecstatic love, Sri Gopal fainted and fell to the ground unconscious. When Sri Gopal fainted, Advaita Acharya hastily took him upon his lap. Seeing that he was not breathing, he became very much agitated. Advaita Acharya and others began to chant the holy name of the Lord Nrsimha and sprinkle water. The roaring of the chant was so great that it seemed to shake the entire universe. When the boy did not regain consciousness after some time, Advaita Acharya and the other devotees began to cry. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed his hand on the chest of Sri Gopal and said loudly, Gopal, stand up. As soon as Gopal heard the voice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he immediately came to his senses. All the devotees then began to dance, chanting the holy name of Hari. This incident has been described in detail by Vrindavan Das Thakur. Therefore, I have described it only in brief. Purport: this is a matter of etiquette. If a previous acharya has already written about something, there is no need to repeat it for personal sense gratification or to outdo the previous acharya. Unless there is some definite improvement, one should not repeat. Tabe Mahaprabhu Kshanika Vishrama Karya Snanakari Bari Gela Bhaktagana Lana. After taking rest, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees departed to take their baths. Tire Utti Parena Prabhu Shushka Vasana Nesinga Deve Namaskari Gela Upavana. After bathing, the Lord stood on the bank of the lake and put on dry garments. After offering obeisances to Lord Nrsimhadev, whose temple was nearby, the Lord entered a garden. In the garden, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down with the other devotees. Finding not Rai, then came and brought all kinds of Mahaprasadam. Kasi Mishran Tulasi, the superintendent of the temple, brought as much prasadam as 500 men could eat. Seeing the large quantity of prasadam, which consisted of rice, cake, sweet rice, and a variety of vegetables, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very satisfied. Among the devotees present with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda, Bharati, Advaitacharya, Nityananda Prabhu, Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, Srivas Thakur, Gadadhar Pandit, Shankara, Nandanacharya, Raghava Pandit, and Vakreshwara were also present. Receiving the permission of the Lord, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sat down. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his devotees sat on raised wooden seats. In this way, all the devotees sat down to take their lunch in consecutive lines, one beside the other. Haridasa Bali Prabhu Dake Gane Gana Dure Rahi Haridasa Kare Nivedana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was repeatedly calling, Haridas, Haridas. And at that time, Haridas, standing at a distance, spoke as follows. Haridas said, let Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu take his lunch with the devotees. Since I am abominable, I cannot sit down among you. Govinda will give me prasad later outside the door. Understanding his mind, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not call him again. Actually, as we go on and on in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so many pastimes and so much nuanced philosophy. So many of the pastimes are around singing, dancing, and then when you get tired, take prasad, and then more singing and dancing, and you get tired, take more prasad, and that's life. Yes, precisely. Hare Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us, Jim. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.